Is it love?
At this point, no, it's not. It's duty, it's commitment, it's a faith that tells you you work it out and stick it out. I think if we both really sat down, we'd look at each other and say, really? I do, but I'm so mad about what's happened with our kids.
We're in a new place. Christine's left. Janelle likes her. That was just like, why couldn't you have been good sister wives when you were sister wives?
Hey everyone, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. It is Friday, April 28th, 2023. TGIF, I hope you're having a wonderful day. Let's talk about the sister wives. Yesterday I did this video and I talked with you about this article that came out by Variety where they interviewed Christine, they interviewed Howard Lee from TLC, and they interviewed one of the producers of Sister Wives, Chris Poole, and they talked about what the future of the show is. They've talked about some of the lasting, how the show has lasted as long as it is, what the show's future will look like, if there's going to be spin-offs, what's going to happen in the upcoming seasons, what we can expect. And Christine was like the only one from the show that was interviewed, and she said that, you know, we started this because polygamists need a voice, and we wanted to show one big happy family, which we now know is not true. And the family has blown up, right? And now the next phase is that we need to do this. Now, something that the producers revealed in that interview was that an investigation into Kody, they believed would be the end of the show was when they moved to Vegas. They didn't expect the show to go on because they believed that it would be over. Once the investigation was over, once they had gone public, there would be no more drama.
Nothing scares me but poverty. Nothing.
Once they had moved and they were no longer, you know, under the threat of a charge. And he made the point to say that like the Utah investigators were threatening to arrest him and there was a real threat to Kody. And he made the point of saying that like he hadn't been charged yet. But if he would have been charged, he would have been a fugitive. But they left before they were charged, so they weren't fugitives, almost acting like there was this imminent threat to Kody, to the wives, to everyone. This has been a long-standing issue because the Brown kids have all reiterated that their parents were under the threat of being arrested.
I've only said it a couple times. If you're not happy here, you can leave.
Gwendolyn said police showed up at the house. McKelty said police showed up at the house. That I don't believe. I don't know that that's actually happened. One of the neighbors of the Browns contacted me last week and said, I never saw a police officer there. I don't recall the police ever really looking into them. They were known well in the community and they had never hidden. The show, yes, was more vocal, but I don't recall the police ever being there. And someone from the church reached out to me last night after the video to provide even more clarification around what happened. And I think it's going to be a very different narrative than what you've heard. And they also gave some insight into Kody's behavior at church and provided some details about what they think about the future is of Kody taking more wives and where Kody's beliefs are and what Janelle's place in all of this is, because it's not the way that they would make you think it is on the show. Because Kody has claimed that they're excommunicated, and now I've had 3 separate people from the AUB contact me and say they were never excommunicated. And these were former members that were around the AUB during the time all this stuff was taken on. And so this new insight is actually more detailed than I've been given before. So I was like, well, let's talk about it. And why this person believes that Kody would very well return to the church, and why they believe that Janelle could be potentially waiting for Kody to get off the show so they can go back to the church and get back together. So let's dive into today's topic. Before we do, can we do me a big favor and give this video a thumbs up? Also, please subscribe to my channel if you have not yet subscribed by clicking on the subscribe button down below. Make sure to leave a comment if you have something to say. If you have a friend you'd like to share this video with, please do. If you are a former member of the AUB and you're watching, hello. If you are someone that is considering leaving the AUB or has questions, hello. And Hi. So listen, someone from the AUB let me know that I am probably one of the largest resources to people that are now considering leaving, and I've become a very prolific voice for this group along with other polygamy groups. And so because of that, I feel like it's a duty to share this information that I was given and to really speak the truth of what happens in these groups. Some of you get upset if I ever point things out which are false. You get upset and you say, you can't blame this person for that. You can't do this without that. And my job is to balance not just what you see on TV and what you think you believe about these people with the evidence of the truth of the group, the claims that were made on the show against the truth of the group and the members of the group, the evidence against what's said on the show. And then it's also to say that just because you think you know someone from TV doesn't mean that that's who they are. People have a really good way of displaying who they want you to believe they are. You know what I'm saying? When the Browns first started the show, they were very active in their church, and they had been members of the Apostolic United Brethren, and they were attending church in Utah. And when they were attending church, someone that reached out to me last night said that Kody Brown was known as a very egotistical guy at church, very egocentric, wanted to be the center of attention, and definitely was on this trajectory where he wanted everyone to know who he was. And that his decision to do this show was not met with the exact anger from the church that he would want you guys to believe. So they also said that the investigation into Kody and the wives was not how it was portrayed at all on TV. So basically what the source said, who is, by the way, 100% verified that they were a member, 100% verified by multiple sources who have verified that this person was there, and who was a family member of someone who had a relative of Christine Brown's, and they are a direct descendant, or I guess they're a descendant of Owen Allred, okay? So it's not Kristen Decker, but it's a direct descendant of Owens, okay? And so what they said was that there was a little bit of uneasiness about the Browns deciding to go on the show. But the church wasn't going to kick him out over it. And they also said that there's no such thing as excommunication there, because the congregation isn't super big, and because they have churches that are sort of all over the place. The way that this member explained it is that there has been a few people that have been excommunicated, but it doesn't happen very commonly. And they said that the Browns were never excommunicated. They said that most people don't get excommunicated because the way they explained it is they always keep the door open because of repentance and the tithing money. And if you really cut someone off, you are cutting off the money. That's kind of what they said. The exposure of the show was not something that the church wanted. But the church didn't necessarily say that the Browns couldn't be a part of the church, or that they couldn't engage with people in the church. And so the way that this person described it is like there was sort of like a compromise made with the church and the Browns. And that was that you need to create space publicly. And I think I've shared with you that someone else told me this exact story, but it's not, this is a little bit more detailed. But you need to create space publicly so it seems like you've been kicked out of the church. So it doesn't look like you're representing us, because we don't want eyes on us. We don't want anyone looking into us. We don't want this idea that you are representing us. And so there was sort of like this alleged mutual agreement that publicly they would both say that there was not a connection anymore, and that the Browns on television would say that they were not a part of the church anymore. And that was it. And then when it came to the investigation, the way that they explained it was that there was never any reasonable threat that they would ever be arrested. In fact, what they said was that before they even left, they were told by the Attorney General that they would not be charged. There was no plans to charge. The way that they described it was that the Attorney General in the state of Utah at the time had made clear that they just don't have enough jail cells for all the polygamists, so they just don't charge it. It's not because they're not committing crimes, but unless there was like other crimes that were being committed, they're not going to just charge him for having extra wives or having more wives, just those charges alone. And so they believed that Kody sort of decided to split the difference. Like, the state of Utah didn't want to look like a fool. The way that they put it is the state of Utah didn't want to look like a fool for not prosecuting him. And Kody wasn't going to be prosecuted, so he left. And it wasn't like he had to leave. It was just like, if you're going to continue to be public and you want to keep on this show, one, you need to separate yourself publicly from the church and say you're not a part of it. And two, just move and we won't do anything. And we're not going to do anything anyway, but we don't want to have to deal with it. That's how they explained it. So this idea that they had to like go in the middle of the night and they had police knocking down their door, this source said that that's not the case. What they also said was that they fully believe that Kody and the wives might have told the kids that that's what's happening. And the way that they explained it is that parents in this group literally will tell their kids they need to lie about who their parents are. They need to lie about whether or not their dads are polygamous, and they need to deny things to the authorities, and that parents tell their children that if they don't do these things, then the families are going to get split up, they're going to be put in foster care, and their parents are going to go into jail. And that was something that a lot of people of this group have told me, is that they use this threat consistently with the kids to keep them sort of silent and quiet about what's going on in their houses. And that the kids, the Brown kids, may have very well felt like there was a threat, and Kody and the wives might have made them feel like there was a threat, but there was no real threat. And to which many of the former AUB people that I've spoken to have actually found that to be one of the more offensive aspects of all of this, is that the kids truly believe to this day that there was a threat when there wasn't one. And that's pretty standard because they want to keep kids silent from telling them anyone about the truth about what's happening in their homes. And I want to be clear that Kody also, by moving, really prevented the state of Utah to looking into more of his activities and looking into any alleged abuse that could be happening. So he really was running and ending this investigation before it could really be started. But they weren't going to really do anything because on the surface, it didn't look like anything was happening. And like I said yesterday, when I showed you that guy that got his daughter pregnant, multiple daughters, in fact, they didn't do anything for 12 years, the state. So the state really does not care and doesn't care to prosecute or deal with polygamists. It's stupid. So I'm going to keep on talking about it. Once Kody and them moved, they say that Kody has remained pretty active with church members. He still is friends with a lot of church members. He is in business with church members. He's still close with church members. And so he's still very active as a fundamentalist, they said. So this image that he's putting out to the public, where they claim that he's like, he doesn't really know if he believes in polygamy and he's not really sure, they don't buy it, because none of the behaviors that they see behind the scenes match that, because of his friends, his relationships, and the activities that he's involved in. Something else they brought up was about Kody's businesses. And so what they mentioned was that the AUB really is like this doomsday cult, which they are prepping for the end of the world. And as a part of that, they like to stockpile weapons, allegedly. And so a lot of the guys in this group are in the gun business, and some of the guys in this group have been known to like maybe sell weapons that are not legal. Not to say that that's not what Kody's doing, but they don't do things on the up and up, let's just say. And so Kody's involvement in that industry still, and being a part of the being part of that prepper world of like, you know, selling all this prepper stuff, which is what he does. He sells prepper stuff, like Brian Colwell comes from the prepper world as well. And so being that he's still in that prepper mindset, they also were like, yeah, he's still totally like acting like a fundamentalist. That hasn't changed. But what they did say is that Kody, if the show were to end today, they fully believe that Kody would go back to the church. And that they also think that Janelle is waiting for the show to end so they can go back to church. Because Janelle has said that she still has a faith and a testimony. And that knowing that the show has separated them from their church and they want to be a part of the church, they think that Janelle could be waiting out for the show to end so they can be welcomed back to the church, and so they can get the families and their faith back together. Because they said that Janelle has been very clear that she's not divorced from Kody. She has stayed in Flagstaff. Even though she says she's separated, she's made clear that she has to stay with him and leave the door open. And they think one of those doors being open would be that they go back to the church. Another thing they mentioned was that the church, if they were to go back, Kody could easily find more wives. And even if they didn't find more wives, they could see Kody going back once the show is over. Does that really sound like a guy that's been excommunicated? No. Does it sound like a guy that's like worried about getting arrested if he's doing and involved with all this prepper gun stuff? No. I think just a lot of it was for the show. And a lot of the wives like Janelle will separate and get back together and separate and get back together and separate and get back together. And even though Christina's left and she's getting married, she has left, but it takes a long time to unwind the belief systems. And let's just say this person was pretty disappointed, actually, with both Christine and Janelle, that they continue on the show because they have an opportunity to really be free of Kody. And most of the advocates that I talk to and most of the people that have left say that as long as they stay in a situation where they're helping Kody profit, they're not going to be able to detangle themselves as much as they could if they were really to set good boundaries. And I'm just coming this from other people that have left, other advocates that I've talked to. I know that's not what you want to hear. That's just what their opinion is. And that's all I have for that. So the Browns were not excommunicated. And then yesterday on a live stream on Patreon, Tony and McKelty flat out confirmed that they were never excommunicated. So I just want to be clear that like I have nothing to gain by sharing this information with you. I'm just trying to help spread the truth of those people that are involved. And, you know, another thing that this person said was that one thing that they feel has been really disingenuous by the Browns is that there's this idea that just because there's no underage marriages, that girls are not getting groomed. And they actually shared a story with me. And they said that the reason why they ended up leaving the church is their father had left. And not long after he had left, they were at a dance and they were 13 years old. And they said that at the dance, a 50-year-old man approached and asked to dance. Now, asking someone to dance is sort of an indication to that person that you're like interested in them. Okay, so she was approached at 13 by a 50-year-old man, and she was very uncomfortable with that. And she turned him down. And she told me that once she did that, she got yelled at and pulled to a side by other adults, allegedly. And they basically said that, like, he went out of his way to show you his interest. The least you could have done is dance with him. And she said that she didn't want to dance with him because she was worried about him and had a creepy feeling about him. And she said only a couple years later, after she declined to dance with him, he was arrested for doing things to underage girls. And then some of you guys had asked if the pure seed doctrine has met its way into the AUB, and yes. 2 people that were part of Owen Allred's inner circle basically were accused of doing this to their daughters. One was a guy named Chevral Palacios, and he actually is in prison, and I think he was deported, but he was convicted of doing this to his daughters, and even one of his wives was convicted. He stood up in front of the AUB church and told everyone what he was doing to his daughters and what he had done and what he believed, and they arrested him, and there was a lot of victims apparently in the AUB. And so that was someone that, again, believed that he had a pure bloodline and he needed to spread that. And so he was doing that with his daughters. And this was someone that was like in a high level of leadership. And if you look at his like information, you will find out that like the trial and everything was like around 2001, 2002, right before, like within a decade of when the show started and filming. And then another man named Joseph Thompson, who was a part of the inner circle of both Owen and of Rulon, was also accused by a couple of his daughters of doing the same thing to them, and accused by people within the church of SA. And another guy named George Maycock was also accused of similar things. So they have had a lot of men in this group that have been accused of doing things not only to their children, to their daughters, but to the people and the members of the church. So the idea that no children are being groomed and no children are being harmed and that kind of stuff, this person and multiple people I've talked to said is false. So what are your thoughts? Are you surprised to learn these details? And do you think Janelle and Kody will get back together and go back to church? Tell me in the comments below. Bye, guys.